guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host Miss KK and this is The Wave. It is your weekly show that looks at topics related to personal, family and business finances, and our hope is that by the time we get to the end of this series, you are better equipped to make sound financial decisions. If you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by. We really love having you on board. Please consider clicking that subscription as well as the bell icon in the comment below. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. Consider giving this video a thumbs up, a like, or leave your comment below. That really helps me when you do that. If you haven't done so, please watch our previous video on the Property Investment Series 101, where I've actually outlined the preparation process of what you need to follow if you are considering buying a property, some of the costs involved in buying a property, and how to do your affordability assessment. And today I'm actually going to be covering the actual process of buying the property, and we are going to be highlighting what are some of the generic process, and also I'm going to be overlaying that with my experience of some of the mistakes that I did when I was actually buying the house. So remember, I've already mentioned that I was nearly in a contract that I could potentially and luckily walk out, and I was glad I was able to do that. And then I actually found an ideal house at the municipality. So depending on whether it's a private sale or an agent sale or a municipality sale, the process might be slightly different. The overriding principles are the same, but some few facts may change. So if you are buying your property through a private sale or a municipality sale, you're unlikely to have a commission or an agent fee, as opposed to if you are selling your house or buying a house through the agent. But you need to remember that it's the seller's responsibility to pay whoever is helping them to sell that house. So you as a buyer shouldn't be paying for an agent commission, because that's not your business, unless of course the seller wants to build that into the price of the property, but you wouldn't actually know that. You'll just be told this is the price of the house. Okay. The other thing I want to touch on is regarding the deposit requirement. In Namibia, if you're buying a house for the first time, meaning you're a first-time buyer, you don't actually have to pay any deposit. But if you are a second-time or a third-time buyer, you are actually required to put up a 10% deposit on whatever property that you are buying. So if you are buying a property and you're potentially looking for bank financing, you need to be comfortable whether you actually need the 10% deposit or you don't need the 10% deposit. The other thing that you also need to realize that if you find now a potential house that you need to buy, you need to enter into a sale agreement with the seller, and that sale agreement is what you take to the bank. So a typical example, when I was buying the house, municipality called me to say your application has been approved, you've qualified for this house, please come sign the seller agreement. But I would say before you sign the sale agreement, please go inspect the property, because if you sign the sale agreement and you commence the process, it might become a bit too late, especially if the lawyers start getting involved. So the one mistake that I did is I signed the sale agreement because I was excited to finally have found a house, and I actually didn't bother going to view the property. But the lucky part of me is I already knew which municipality houses were being sold and how they looked like. But the only problem that I actually encountered when I physically got the key to get to the house, I realized there were some minor cracks in the building. Then I started panicking. I wanted to pull out of the agreement, but it was a little bit already into an advanced process. So what I eventually did is I just got an engineer friend of mine to come and assess the severity of the cracks, and he advised that the cracks weren't really severe, and it was really caused by just the fact that the house was closed for a long time, and it was newly constructed, and as the house is like setting and foundation blah blah blah, that led to some minor cracks, and municipality had the responsibility to contact the contractor, and the contractor could attend to the crack before I could move in the house. So I eventually ended up taking the house, but I was a bit scared at first before I got the advice from the engineer friend. So fast forward, I took the agreement to the bank, and at the point of you taking to the agreement to the bank, at that point in time, you are already comfortable that the price of that house is within your qualification amount. So what you really are looking at is whether the bank will be able to help you finance the extra cost. So that's why when you see adverts for houses being sold, they either tell you excluding costs or inclusive of costs. The cost that we are talking about here is the transfer costs, because the house needs to be transferred from the seller's name to the buyer's name, is the bond registration cost. Because if you are not buying the house cash, a bond needs to be registered over that house, so that if you are to sell that house and it's not fully paid off, the buyer would know that the bank still has a bond over this house, and you won't be able to sell that for as long as that bond is not cancelled. and also the admin fee, because the bank is helping you to facilitate this transaction. So they will charge you what's called the admin fee. So the admin fee is determined by the bank. The bond registration cost and the lawyer's cost, those are normally dealt with in the, into those relevant act, and I think they are regulated, so be assured that the attorneys won't charge you excessive fees on this. Also, the one thing that you need to notice, certain banks have preferred lawyers simply because, there's sort of different admin from each bank perspective, and a lawyer that transacts with a particular bank is familiar with each bank's policies, and they are likely to execute that transaction efficiently. And the quicker the transaction can be closed out, the better it is for both parties. For you, you get occupancy earlier, and for the bank, they will start collecting interest from you earlier. So they'd like to work with an attorney that is familiar. So just to give a bit of context to those fees, like I've mentioned, the bond registration fee, I don't know if that is actually fixed, and the transfer duty, I think that is dependent on the value of the property. So you need to go and Google. The tables are available. You can check how much your duties are going to be. Plus, if you ask the bank to give you an estimate of how much this will be, they will do it for you, because that's what I did. So because I wanted to finance my costs cash, I asked them to give me an estimate, and they told me it would be around about 30,000, including their admin fee, and the admin fee was 10,000. So I had that. I budgeted for it. When the time came for me to actually pay for this fees, I just told them, can they please deduct it from my account and pay the lawyers and pay themselves. But you can also ask them to include it in the bond that they are giving you, and you pay that over the term of the house, which is typically 20 years. So, but what you need to remember here, the bank will never finance a house that is above valuation. That's why when you see a sale agreement, you'd normally see the advert saying being sold below valuation. So let's have some numbers here. Assuming you qualify for 600,000, the house that you got is 500,000. That means there's still 100,000 left in your qualification amount that you can play around with to help you cover these costs in case you don't have the money to cover these upfront costs. So what you need to realize is that the bank will send their independent valuator to the property that you are buying, and they will value the property, and they will determine the value of the property. So for as long as the value of this property is above the 500 that the seller is actually giving it to you, the bank will be able to give you the finance. But if the property is only worth 490, then the bank will only give you maximum 490, and you must find where to get the 10,000 that you are short, and you must find where to get the 30,000, or whatever your transfer cost is going to be, plus all these other costs. So if you still have room in your qualification amount, i.e. you can play around with this 100,000 plus your valuation, there's still a room in your valuation. So assuming the house is worth 450, but the seller is selling it to you at 400, that means you still have 50,000 within your valuation amount that you can play around with. So if, for argument's sake, if your transfer costs are like mine and your admin fee costs are like mine, and they are totaling to 30,000, the bank can gladly give you 530 because you qualify for 600,000 and the house is actually valued at 450. The reason why the bank doesn't give you a bond that is above, or an amount that is above the valuation amount, is because if you were to sell the house today, you are likely to actually sell it at market value if it's not a for sale, or at below market value if it's a for sale and you really just need the money. So the bank needs to be guaranteed that if you were to sell the house, they will be able to recover the money that they've given you, and that's why they don't give loans for houses that are sold above valuation amount. And that's what saved me to exit the first mistake that I nearly did with a one-bedroom flat. So, and that's really all I wanted to discuss with regards to financing. So you need to be comfortable that you have either the deposit, or you qualify for zero deposit. You actually are comfortable that the house that you are getting is not above valuation, but the bank will be able to determine that because they definitely send their independent valuator to do that for you. And the one thing that I just want to caution you is, if you are going to buy a property through a private sale, you need to be guaranteed that you're not paying money to the seller before the deed of sale take place. So what I would typically advise is, or what I would typically say is, deal with a reputable law firm, pay the money into the lawyer's account, and then let the lawyer handle everything. And only once you are established that this deed of sale is actually finalized and both of you guys have signed the deed of sale, then the lawyer can disperse the funds to actually to the seller. So I'm mentioning this because I just saw a post on Facebook recently that the person is complaining they've paid 350,000 into the seller, and it's been 6 months now, and they haven't heard anything from the seller. The deed of sale hasn't been signed yet. There's no the property hasn't been registered in her name yet, and the seller has blocked both the buyer and the lawyers that were facilitating the transaction. And you don't want to find yourself in a situation like that, because you might lose a significant amount of money. And also, we need to make sure that we are doing a proper search on the property to make sure that there's no one, especially if it's plots. Houses are much easier because the value of the transaction is larger, but plots, you need to make sure that the person that is selling the plot to you has ownership to that, and you do that by actually finding whether there is that property is registered in their name at the deeds office. And the other thing, I wanted to mention something, but I forgot. So really make sure that you do your homework. Make sure that you don't lose your money in because you're desperate. Make sure that you also involving someone that can help you navigate through this process. And I wish you all the best of luck in finding your property. So up next, we are going to be discussing how the amortization table works, and also what are the subsequent costs of actually having a house. And if you'd like to expand your house, should you do it with a bank, or can you do it with your personal loan, or doing with your own funds, as well as if you are to sell the house, what's the process involved in that? I haven't personally sold the house, but I'll reach out to a friend of mine that has recently sold the house, and I'm gonna find out what the process is there. Thank you so much for joining us. This is all we had from The Wave this week. If you haven't done so, please consider clicking the subscription and give this video a thumbs up or a like. And also, if I have left something that you sort of have, I remembered what I wanted to say right now. Okay, so if you are going to be buying a property from someone and it's a second-hand property, it's not a brand new property, and that person has made improvement to the property, you must make sure that those improvements are actually effected on the structural drawings that are submitted at municipality. Because if you don't do that, the bank won't finance those structures that are not on the property. So let's say the person is selling to you a house and a flat, right? And the person illegally constructed the flat at the back of their house because they needed to have it for rental income, and they did it illegally, which a lot of people can do. And they are now selling you this house at a price that is slightly higher because they have now both this flat, and this flat is going to give you rental income, and that is their selling point to you. You need to make sure that the engineering drawings, or the structural drawings that are submitted at municipality, that additional flat is actually added there, because the bank won't finance that additional flat if it's not showing in the drawings that are at the municipality. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry I'm bringing this up in the middle of nowhere, but I had just lost my train of thought in the middle of the discussion. So thank you so much. Leave a comment below what you wanted me to touch on that I didn't. Maybe I can build it in the next video, or I can just simply answer your question in the comment section. Thank you so much, and as always, please stay safe. Bye bye.